JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Friday, October 3rd, 327 on this fine afternoon. Talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. Markets are mixed. S&P is slightly in the green, holding on, grasping on to the last little green here. We'll see if it make it six straight sessions in the green for the S&P. Nasdaq's in the red, down about a quarter percent. And the Dow is soaring up about 0.6%. Lackluster week, right? No data. We had no jobs report this morning, and next week is going to be similar stuff. It's going to be how can we spin the headlines to make a headline around the government shutdown impacting the markets clickable, right? How are we going to get the clickbait? And that's probably what it's going to be until this all gets worked out. Where there was another vote earlier, uh, that didn't go through, so this is going to just drag on. So. Uh, Outside of that, we have earnings season. So next Tuesday, so not this coming Tuesday, the following Tuesday, it starts with the banks. And some reason, I don't know why, earnings used to start on like Friday morning with banks. Now it's shifted to Tuesday. So next week there's no earnings, not a lot of economic data because we can't really have too much economic data anyway until the shutdown is over. So now it's going to be about technicals, headlines, and yeah, that's about it. Maybe some boots on the ground research. Analysts gonna have to go out to the stores and to the malls and check traffic there. And joking aside, so it should be an interesting week nonetheless. So this week, talked about 660 to 667 on the SPY, got up to 670, 268 just early at the noon hour. Uh, I talked about the upper Bollinger Band. Sure enough, that's where we hit 672. I think it was 672.51 this morning. Now that's at 673. And we'll see how next week plays out in regards to the range, but it's probably going to be similar, pending, any. I mean, today, what do you have? Was it yesterday? Was Putin saying that the war in Ukraine would have happened without the current, without Trump, the current POTUS? And what was it this morning? Escalations with NATO out. So who knows? Some headlines might come out of left field. Uh, but outside of that, you have to think maybe it's going to be just consolidation and it started quarter four already off to a bang. S&P Nasdaq up over 1%. What do I have for the week? Small caps, I think it's like 8 of the last 9 weeks in a row for the small caps closing on the upside. They're up 1.8% on a week. So, all right, so that's kind of the overall market. Individual names. So Reddit this morning, I was doing a rant actually watching the pre-market. It was, I think, 4 in the morning. It might have been like 200, 201, and then it just slowly started to creep to the upside. And next thing you know, it's 203, 204, 205, and then it just started to really take off at about 8 o'clock. Um, and I'm like, oh, my lotto calls might have a chance here. Got up to 210, and then it turns out about 8:50 there were analysts coming out, GMP Securities and Piper Sandler, reiterating their market outperform and overweight ratings. I don't know if that was all of it, but thankfully good enough for my calls. The thing with Reddit, and I was saying it right before the market opened, Reddit, for some reason, we can get 24-hour trading on stocks, but we can't get option markets on some names to open when the market opens. Just mind-boggling to me. So a lot of times, and it doesn't happen on a lot of names, but some of these names, Reddit's one of them. For some reason, the option market doesn't open exactly 9:30. Sometimes it's like 9:33, sometimes 9:35. Thankfully today Reddit opened. It might have been like 9:32, 9:31, somewhere in there. But I had my calls in at the limit order right at the open. And I haven't done these rants in a while where I have an option expiration or an option that I want to close out the following morning, and how I usually process the trade. I'm trying to think of some rants for other days. Don't have time to do it, but if I have an order, sometimes I'll put limits in, right? And I'm old school, so a lot of my trading is done on TD. Well, it's not TD anymore, but using Thinkorswim. But I have the limits in there so that it's easy to adjust as the market opens. Because sometimes, especially on a weekly option, they can swing, and if you're not quick enough to adjust your order to catch the swing, next thing you know, a contract could be 50 cents, and then you're looking at its bidless, right? So with Reddit, I think I put them in at 121.40 at the open. Stock was at like 212, and the option market wasn't opening. Then finally it did, and the spreads were wide, but I wasn't getting filled. Knocked it down, and $1.80 somewhere. Someone got filled for over $1 on the the 220s, but then finally I was able to get some out for 70 cents, a little over 300%, and then I was holding the rest because you just don't know if it's going to have. And Reddit's had these moves, especially right at the open where it launches $8-10 in a flash, but that didn't happen. Found some resistance, got to 212, and then that was kind of it. So didn't want to see the rest of those profits evaporate, so I closed the last of the 220s for a small profit. And then also was thinking, hey, maybe I can use that to try and do some lottos later in the day. But it's just been chopping around here. And then, uh, I'm looking for strikes into next week possibly on Reddit. But to me, probably I would have a little more confidence if it was maybe 212, 215. If it was headed towards the highs in the morning. So it's not doing that. So I'll just wait until next week to kind of revisit. But thankfully, those paid off. And then take a look at Nike today. Thankful to have locked my profits in on Nike. Well, thankful to get 100% at the open yesterday, and then to close the last out. And then look at it today, just fall through to the downside, down nearly 3%. And I was talking about revisiting Nike at some point in the coming weeks. It might be in the coming days the way it's going, but it looks like it wants to trade down to 70. But anyway, so that's Reddit. Definitely a name I'll continue to revisit. And it's is it setting up similar to its last earnings where everybody was beating it up, saying AI is going to destroy it, the stock gets pummeled, and then earnings come out and it's a gap and go. I don't know, but I'm probably going to try to make sure I'm positioned if when that does happen. Sorry. So that's Reddit. Other names I'm watching here, obviously Duolingo. While I was trying to manage the Reddit position, Duolingo just took off. Stock did it open at? Open, it was already gapping at the open. It opened 315 and then just took off. Next thing you know, it's at $328. I was looking at some calls. I'm like, let me just sit on my hands. Pulls back to 320 and it's been chopping around there ever since. The 50-day moving average is 318. Actually, yeah, 318.80. I was looking. I almost got some of the 390s for the following week. If I trade that, I might look for those, but I'm just gonna be patient. I tried to do it last week, and it's funny. The market's going to teach me a lesson like it always does, and there'll be some kind of gap and go move on Duolingo. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I just don't have enough conviction to hold the premiums into like I did last week. So I'll revisit come next week. So that's Duolingo. Oh, and then Edit. So Edit, I had those strikes back in July, the January strikes, and I talk about this often, not liking to look at options. I wouldn't say some of the reason, but a lot of times I don't go further out because I hate looking at an option that's expiring, that's bidless. And let's say you get a January strike and there's bad earnings or what have you, and now you know that there's probably a very good possibility that you're going to be staring at this option in your account for until January expiration, right? So with that being said, I did get the Edit January calls, but some of it's because of the hold factor, right? Because I think it's going to take time for it to resolve, and when it does, January gives plenty of time for that to happen. So sure enough, there's been choppy times. I was able to lock some of the $5 strikes out for over 100%. I think it was at the end of July, and then I was holding the rest, and then it's been melting higher, and finally hit the 4 handle this morning. I was looking at those 750 strikes. So in lieu of trying to add both of the contracts, I went and closed the last of the $5 strikes for some nice profits. And then I rolled some of that into the 750s just because if there's continuation. So if you know the Edit story, gene editing therapy, back in the COVID days, and even before that, I'm trying to think of some of these years, but those names were so hot. And there was M&As in the sector, acquisitions, things like that. Back in July, at some reason, Edit popped. But Edit, it's like $180 million in cash, 300 something million dollar market cap, 200 million in assets, and I think some of that's their IP. And then they have partnerships and studies and things that are potential catalysts. So really like this one. That's why I didn't want to close position, not have something, and the 750s offer decent risk reward. So these biotechs, you've seen them in $2, $3, $4. The next thing you know, couple months later down the road, they're 10, 12, 15. Take a look at Corbis. Corbis is $13. Did it go to 13? That was like $6, $7 when I started looking at the other. Actually, it's almost at $15 here today. Turn Pharmaceuticals. So rants for other days. So that was the trade on Edit today. So locked the last of those fives in. GameStop, right? Ah, man, kicking myself. Well, not kicking myself, but happy I locked the last of my October strikes in for the rest of the profits. And I was looking for the November 40s, and there warrant dividends next week. And I'm looking at the strikes, and they look weird. So I don't know. I don't have a position, right? So let's see here. I don't know what. Now I'm trying to see what if the warrant. I checked GMEW. There's no warrant trading right now, so I think that'll trade next week. But I figured there'd be more positive reaction. I think yesterday was the date that I don't know if it's today or yesterday. You had to be in GameStop to get the warrant. Anyway, stock has to be over $32. So the warrant gives you the opportunity to buy the stock to convert it into stock at $32. And it's every 10 shares you own, you get one warrant. So when stock's not over $32, but if it starts getting there, you have to take this catalyst for potential short squeeze. But I'll continue to be patient there on GameStop. Serve Robotics, a great move this morning, all the way up to 1360 by 1030. Was waiting for that 1375 to break. That didn't happen. All the way back under 13 by 2 o'clock and then bounced. So it's sitting here at 1322. I'll continue to be patient, adding more strikes there on those. Wait for 1375 to break. Of course, Duolingo's starting to go here a little bit too. Carlytics, great session early this morning, $2.60. And then boom, took it on the chin, down 20 cents, still here at 240. Funny enough, Citron Research is out on Teladoc again. Another name he followed me in earlier this year. And part of his quote says, "Not never wrong, just early." I'm like, I've been saying that for the last 2 months. And, I've been doing this for 15 years or whatever have you. And there's phrases and terms I've used over and over again, but never wrong, just early hasn't been a phrase I used all the time until just recently. So funny. I'm not saying he copied my words or maybe he's listening to rant right now. Or he listens to my rants, but moral of the story is I'm not following on Teldoc, but I just hope that Cardlytics doesn't kind of fall to the wayside because with yesterday's news with the job cuts and then the fact that it didn't rally yesterday and then today it's not holding the gains. So hopefully that one starts to get going. Other names, Align Technologies. I was looking this morning. If you've listened to rants over the years, it's one of those names that just has slow I wouldn't say slow, but out of nowhere will have a 3-session rally, and the stock will be, it was 125 this morning. You look 3 days later, it'll be 155. There'll be no news, no catalyst, but a lot of it, I think, is their buyback program, and it seems like they hit the button and they do it in a very short time frame. And if you're able to catch when that time frame starts, can make some massive money on the calls. But I was going to look to get some lottos this morning, but for me, I don't want to go into the weekend putting, with a sour taste in my mouth. So I'll probably just stand pat. Earlier this afternoon when we had that big pull, I was looking. I'm like, Palantir looked interesting for some lotto puts. Even Broadcom, I'm not going to go there, but that looked interesting. But all those found some bottoms around 2 o'clock and have kind of held pat. So any lottos would just would not have panned out. So I'll just sit on my hands at the weekend. The only one I'm looking at here is Duolingo, and I'm like, we got 20 minutes into the close. Don't be surprised if I add something, but I'll probably just sit on my hands. All right, let's have a great weekend, folks. I'll be back rock and roll.